So I'd like to welcome Josanne Kanipe from Pacojet. Welcome, Josanne.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me. We're just going to talk a little bit about pacotizing and healthcare and the chewing difficulties that people may have and swallowing. Um, so yeah, it's something that a lot of people deal with, that most people, hopefully, ever don't ever have to deal with it. But, there's a lot of people out there that do have chewing difficulties and swallowing difficulties. And so how does pacotizing help this industry?
Well, pacotizing, we call it, pacotizing instead of puree. So it will give you a beautiful puree, but Pacojet is the only machine of its kind that does allow you to pacotize. And what that is a micro puree and emulsification directly from frozen. So your prep is really easy, especially with products in healthcare that may have a protein. So if we're using a meat, that's usually a very dense, fibrous product. So for somebody with swallowing difficulties, you really want to break that down and make sure that there are no pieces where they may aspirate, which means that it goes into the lung. So that's typically something very difficult to make in-house from scratch, because water has to be added, it has to be blended down. And then you get some human error because they're just using, their visual cues to look and see, well, I don't have any large pieces. And then that gets maybe strained, and then the jellification gets added. So it's just a really lengthy process. Right. So for that particular process, pacotizing will save you over an hour, which is fantastic.
That is
and you add back for your patients, you get to add back, the full benefits of the full utilization of the food product. Right. A lot of times, like I said, that's getting watered down, being liquefied. So with Pacojet, it is easy to prepare. We take our cooked beef or chicken or whatever it may be, put it with the wonderful juices and the broth, and just put it into the pacotizing beaker and you freeze it. So you're done. And then in the kitchen, it allows the cooks and the chefs to not have to have a separate menu necessarily for the altered texture. They can take these same items that they may serve for their general population by simply putting them in the beaker and freezing them. Then you pacotize, and that's the best part because it pacotizes 3.5 ounces in 20 seconds.
Wow.
So it's also really fast.
Yes.
But because it's getting down to that molecular level of 0.8 of a particle, you know that there's very little danger of having any of those pieces remaining. But you're also giving your patients the benefit of the best quality food product that you can have. So not only are you saving time,
the flavors they're used to. That was the big thing for me. I know when I had my jaw surgery.
Well, I was thinking about that though. You told me that yesterday. Yeah, because I was listening to a podcast actually from a nutritionist that was working directly with COVID patients. And because of their loss of taste and smell, they just really didn't want to eat. And they were even asking, for ice cream. So even with Pacojet being wonderful and known for so many culinary options, for frozen desserts, you could even have that. You could also maybe take any of the liquid form that you're using, Ensure Boost, and there's a lot of other, more natural versions of that. But I think about my personal experience. I took care of my father when he was aging, and he said, it has a chalky taste.
Yes.
And so we did it here. We took the Ensure and we just put it into the pacotizing beaker, and we pacotized it after it was frozen, and it lost kind of that chalky flavor. So it's almost like an ice cream treat, right? So with Pacojet, the creativity is endless. You can do so many things. And so it could be used for these altered textures, but it also could be used to, create a no waste kitchen, or use it for some of these culinary options to increase your customers, satisfaction, because they're really going to like what they're getting to eat.
Right. And especially, like I said, as an adult, once you're used to eating the wonderful flavors, of having fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, good meat quality, you really appreciate when you can retain that flavor and also the color. I mean, in the video that you'll see here, that we did there in the kitchen, I mean, we had, baby food, and then, peas, and then fresh peas, and the color difference was just night and day. And it was like, what adult would want to eat that, yucky color when you can eat this bright, beautiful food, you know?
Absolutely. And with the carrots is what I find where it really stands out, because if
Yes.
you can take the coupe set blades that also is an add-on kit with the Pacojet, and you can take those blades and cut down from raw the vegetables really fine, and then just pack them into the beaker before you freeze them really tight to get the air
Yep.
pockets out.
Yeah.
And then you can pocketize it, and you don't even need to add thickener sometimes, and it will,
Right.
hold at that pureed consistency. But the color is beautiful. You're
Yes.
right, it's vibrant. And so
Yeah.
you're able to give your patients, as you said, they have the aromas and the tastes of the
Right.
natural food.
Right. And like you mentioned also, a chef can have leftovers, leftover vegetables or, whatever, and he could put that into a beaker and create something totally different the next day. Like, like we were talking about the fruits. If you pack the fruits down in there and you can freeze them and pacotize them, and that's the sorbet is just, oh, it's so good.
Right. And what a great marketing thing for, a hospital to be able to say, or an assisted living to be able to say that literally everything is made on site. We make everything fresh here. Nothing is brought in from outside, because we care about the quality, we care about the safety, especially for those having, swallowing issues. So being able to have all that made on site and fresh, and when you have someone in that scenario, maybe it's assisted living where that's one of your parents, it's comforting to know that they are enjoying everything that they're having to eat, because that's a big part of their day.
Look, I do want to talk about how does it pacotize? So where the difference between the blade spinning on the bottom and pacotizing from the top down. Can you explain a little bit about the difference between Pacojet and a normal blender?
Yes, absolutely. And that's a great point. So you got to love the Swiss. They think of everything. They really care about quality and precision. And so it's one of the few machines where the motor's on the top, because why? They didn't want any heat to begin to degrade the quality and the color of that food. So the food is the star. Those natural flavors become the
Right.
star.
Yeah.
And so it pacotizes also from the top down, also only to Pacojet. It's the only machine of its kind that will do that. And so it's in the frozen beaker, and you, as the operator, as the chef, as the cook, you select exactly how much you want to have pacotized. It could be a half portion. It even, the 2+ that's behind you even pacotizes in decimal quantity. And so it could be a half of a portion, but everything in the bottom remains completely frozen. So that's why the pictures behind me here, pictures behind you, that portion that you're seeing in the middle is actually still solid frozen.
Yes.
So there's no HACCP issues. There's no loss of quality. You scoop out that product that's been pacotized, and then you add your thickening agent or add it to a soup, whatever you want to do with that particular food stuff. But
Right.
yes, the rest goes right back in the freezer. So you
Yeah.
only pacotize what you need when you need it.
Yes.
So another benefit, especially for healthcare, are these new international standards that are coming out that really tell us those different 7 levels for altered texture, and it's very precise. So Pacojet, with the addition of the coupe set, is the only machine on the market where with that one machine, I can get all 7 levels. So
Awesome.
that again is a savings. And for a lot of folks, they're having a hard time figuring out, how do I achieve these levels? And so we've created, using the frozen peas that are also in the healthcare cookbook, the frozen peas, and we've given you kind of a diagram of how you get to every level with that one beaker. So again, it's a time savings, because
Right.
I've made that beaker one time. It has the same thing in it, but from that one beaker, I can get all 7 levels of the IDDSI program. So we've made it easy for you to implement that into your culinary program.
Yeah, that's great. And then also, as you mentioned, Pacojet has done some of the legwork for folks, and they have a cookbook
Yes.
designed for this. Yes. So that's another great add-on that you can get with your Pacojet 2 Plus.
Yes, absolutely. And the pictures are extraordinary. When you look at the pictures, you won't think that, you're looking at an altered texture diet, or, it looks like a fine culinary piece. So
Right.
sharing and looking at some of those recipes and the pictures that have been developed, it's beautiful work.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you very much for joining
Thank
us.
you for having me.